much, Trevor. Once again, we're here live for you from the Bomas of Kenya, and this is where the town hall is taking place. Today, we are talking about devolution. Lots to talk about with the 6th annual Devolution Conference kicking off tomorrow in Kirinyaga County, and many people taking stock of devolution and talking to us on social media and on our various platforms as well. I'll be looking at some of your feedback indeed. Now, I'm here with Mashima Kapombe. She'll be sampling some of the views of the members who are here in the audience, but my panel has actually had a little bit of a discussion even before this, and I'll give them a chance to capture some of the thoughts that have come out of what they look at in terms of devolution 6 years in. And we do have former Governor Bomet, Isaac Ruto, who I actually wanted to find out from him once again. When we came to you just a couple of minutes ago, you gave devolution 4 out of 10.
Yes.
That ranking, who are you, quote unquote, heaping the biggest blame on in terms of why it's taken, why we're at 4 out of 10, which is 40%. That's not a good grade to have in school, let alone as a country.
The contributors to this 40% is all of us, the entire Kenyan political elite, and also the Kenyan public, including the press. We are ready to facilitate the killing or the disabling of the counties and devolution in itself, and that we are not entirely convinced as to the direction we are heading to. It appears as if it's not ours. Every time there's a small problem, we say counties, counties, counties. Even corruption, when corruption becomes a problem, it is counties, corrupt counties, corrupt counties. And yet it is an endemic problem for the entire nation. We need to look at issues that belong to the counties and issues that belong to the national level.
In a nutshell,
but we should first be disposed towards implementing the devolution program. We understand we have all our ills as a nation. We will carry those ills downwards. But the point here is that should never stop us from devolving, so that we now look for a proper problem, for a proper solution to the problem from below. That's what we mean.
Senator, so you've heard what he said. What's the issue? Civic education not been sufficient? Lack of goodwill at the top? Is it that the people at the bottom don't understand? Where do you heap the most blame?
You know, there are people who say power is sweet, and it's actually sweeter when it's concentrated. So the dispersal of power was completely misunderstood, because devolution is about services. It's not about who is more powerful than the other one. And therefore, whilst counties were supposed to deliver services, and the constitution requires that the funds follow those functions. In fact, when Christine Lagarde of World Bank was here, she said one of the successes of devolution, she pointed out 3 C's, but one of them was complete fiscal devolution. Means resources must follow functions. We have said this before, the resources on devolved functions have increased at national level more than they are increasing or they are being devolved for counties. And health is one of those functions, agriculture is one of those functions. All these dams you're talking about, these are things that we should be doing at counties. Talking with governors and doing them as opposed to national level. So what he's talking about is a narrative. Now, the narrative is old. The marginalization is as old as Kenya. It's a 1963 issue that let's put everything at the center. If you want to understand devolution, it's a big circle. And the circle starts from the outside coming in and not the other way around. But the idea that we must have things happening in Nairobi, central government, the president, deputy president controls everything. They say what goes to the east, what goes to the west. You saw one of my colleagues complaining during New Year, under whatever circumstances he was, but whatever was in his mind is in the mind of Kenyans. That we have elected you to do this work, but you're not delivering services to us. If the resources that were supposed to follow these functions were devolved in the manner that it was, then you will not be having this problem. But when I say 6, it's because out of 10. When you divide this country, and I say this without even apologizing, the country is divided into counties, nothing else. That is the constitution.
But in the midst of all this...
And you're interrupting me.
Yes. In the midst of all this, there are some counties that are being praised for what is happening there. How are they pulling, quote unquote, pulling that off despite the challenges that you've spoken about so clearly? Some have rated Makueni, Kakamega as counties that are standing out. How are they doing it?
It's like this glass. Is it half full or half empty? The question is...
You tell me.
that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
The point is that you will find small little things that were not there before. In Makueni, you're celebrating that you have a maternity hospital that has cost 135 million shillings. Kakamega has a hospital. Bometa has something that they are doing. Wajir, Marsabit, Mandera have roads. You have dairy factories in very many parts of the country. They're small stories of successes, but all of us have imagined, and it's not even 6 years. 2013 was not a full year. 2018 still is 2018. Remember the elections and the disruptions. So if you imagine that we have been independent for 55 years, and even with the independence for 55 years, there are places in this country where women are giving birth under a tree. Then we are doing well in terms of devolution, because you can see that slowly you're having dispensary, the health centers, community health workers. So it's progressive. Only that the discussion is not about resources. We are not asking national government, when you are budgeting, why are you keeping the money at national level? Why is it not going to counties? Why, for example, are counties paying 70% of their budgets to salaries and 30% to development, and you can't even meet the threshold of 30%? When the stories are given about counties, and somebody in the audience asked about delayed disbursement of funds.
And we'll actually come into that. I'm sure they'll have...
If you delay resources to counties, and yet the Public Finance Management Act says, do not procure this book before you see the money in your account, what do you think is going to happen? Counties are going to borrow from commercial banks. They are going to be stuck, and that's where you get into a merry-go-round of things that are not supposed to happen.
Fair enough.
So it's a discussion.
And I'm coming back
that we must have, candidly.
Let me bring in Wanjiru now just to get your opening thoughts. You've heard what they've had to say. What's your take?
It's really difficult to add, because I agree with everything they're saying. I think I gave a 50-50. Because we have a positive dispensation, and I'm going to speak to that. We have a constitution that brings change, and the problem is, of course, we've got a whole young generation that maybe doesn't remember where we are coming from and why we needed to embed devolution in the constitution and make it very difficult to change. Because since independence, the center has held on to power and used that power for political reasons and really mismanaged parts of the country that were almost alienated from the nation of Kenya. Now, because of this culture of impunity and a culture of centralism that killed local authorities in Kenya, killed the district focus for rural development in Kenya, really about centralization, there was a very clear reason for embedding devolution in the constitution. Now, unfortunately, a lot of Kenyans don't appreciate the history of how we have two parts of the country that are very prosperous, others that are not prosperous, and why devolution came about. Because we haven't had adequate civic education to say we are on a change trajectory to bring everybody on board on this devolution agenda, or on this development agenda. And that development agenda is based on self-governance at the local level. It's based on resources coming down to all parts of the country. It's based on certain principles. Unfortunately, Kenyans, whereas I think they embrace devolution, are not aware of the depth to which we need this process to continue, are not aware that they are agents of this change, and that we are trying to change from the political elite who are beneficiaries of the old system, and that we need to defend the constitution and unseat these people who are enjoying the old regime and will not be favored by the new regime. So I think what we need to do, media,
summed up the struggle
ourselves,
in a nutshell.
we are in the struggle. We are the change agents as we sit here. And if we don't take this forward, we are actually going to lose and regress to where we were.
We actually have a representation of Kenyans here, and Mashirima Kapombe will help get some questions from them. Mashirima, watu wanasema vipi?
Maswali ni mengi hapa. Kuna masuala ya afya ambayo yametajwa, wengine wanahisi kuwa kuna masuala mengine ambayo yanahitaji kuzungumziwa kuhusiana na matumizi ya fedha, lakini nitaanza tu na Michael Okumu ambaye swali lake ni kwa Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. Michael.
My question goes to the senator. We have seen the huge sum of money, of taxpayers' money, being lost at the county government. Now, do you think that the county government and their bosses have become too powerful that the Senate cannot oversight with existing laws?
Senator?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that governors have become too big to be oversighted. In fact, a lot of them have been oversighted. It is true, and we must admit that there has been what is called misuse of public resources at county level, where we have seen plunder. For example, some was in the news recently. But I'm saying, in my view, that is possibly, if you do it in averages, that is a minority. The bulk of the counties are attempting to make sure that counties get services. We, just like in the Bible, we have a few Judases in devolution, and you will find that there are people who are misusing resources. As far as Senate is concerned,
and there was a time when, of course, some governors would not honor the summons.
Yes, yes, and governor. Yeah, no, he was one of them. It's one of them. It's one of them. They didn't think they should be summoned, but we were talking about political responsibility. If you become the CEO of a county under Article 79, you are a CEO. If you are a CEO, you answer questions. For purposes of Senate, the difficulties we have had are the structures that we inherited, even from the current old structure, means that our audits that come to the Senate are possibly 2 years late. So you're doing audits for 2015 as opposed to current audits. If we are getting audits on a regular basis, we will be able to make sure that at the point where these resources are being spent, then you can audit. But the last one is this. At the beginning of term in 2014, we passed a motion to stop the transfer to 4 counties where there was pilferage of funds.
Okay.
But there was no cooperation from the cabinet secretary, and therefore we have found that sort of problem. The true oversight should be that at every quarter where there is misuse of resources, we ought to be able to stop transfer for a period of time until the audit queries are answered. Otherwise,
and this is actually catered for in the Constitution.
Yes, it's
Article 255.
225.
225, I beg your pardon.
So what is happening at the committee that is doing audit is you are just undertakers. You are just carrying a corpse that is long dead, as opposed to addressing the issue as it is happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about answering a bit on that part, because it's carried by his question. The question of oversight is a proper function.
Yeah.
But the debate we've been having with the Senate is at what stage do they come in? Article 221 gives oversight over funds expenditure at the county levels to the county assemblies.
226.
I think
226.
Okay. Or is it 225? Even?
226.
But I think you better check again.
Yes.
But
I think
you being a lawyer.
Okay. Carry on.
It assigns oversight over expenditure at the for the national government to the National Assembly. The expenditure at the county to the county assemblies. The Senate, the first function of the Senate is the protection of the counties and the interest of the counties, and to ensure that the oversight, the distribution of resources at the national level. But the Senate has been very quick to jump to do the work of the county assemblies, even before the assemblies themselves have looked at the question. We would like the final oversight to come to the Senate, because there is a higher level given to the Senate for that oversight. But we were finding them jumping the gun. They want to do it before the county assemblies have even looked at it. And
we do need to take a break.
But I don't want those questions really to distract us from the real issue as to what devolution is all about. I only want to add that you said counties like Kakamega and Makueni have performed well.
Some rankings.
Give them, that is good.
Come out
but you
tops.
see, they may be performing at this level simply because the others are very low. Give Kakamega their rightful share, and you will see how Kakamega will develop. Give Makueni their rightful share, and you will see the entire county changing completely. Give all the counties their fair share of the resources, but don't fool us that now it is enough. Kakamega is performing. Maybe they have just done a little bit of what they could have done. Yes.
Good. We also have a Kevin Osido. He's the Executive Director, County Governance Watch. We will bring him in also to give us his views. But Mashirima.
Naam, hapo Mheshimiwa Isaac Ruto akizungumzia mgao wa fedha